Kick drum placement is important.
Free beat.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to Free Beat. Before we get into the video, today's patron shoutout goes to Alex Thompson. Thank you so very much for the support. If you would like to support the channel as well as get access to the Free Beat Discord server, just head over to patreon.com/freebeat. Let's get started. So I've made many videos in the past about drum placement and how important, your drum placement can be in terms of an overall track, but I don't think I've ever specifically singled out the kick drum. And today, while I'm going to demonstrate this concept on the Deluge, this will work on any drum machine, or with any live drummer for that matter. This is just an overall kind of drum discussion. So, the kick drum, as you might know, in a drum part, is sort of the anchor of the whole thing. And in most drum parts, it's the low end. It's what gives you a lot of your oomph in your drum parts, whether we're talking electric or acoustic. It's also what emphasizes important parts of your song. So like in jazz drumming, a lot of the times, a more forte kick drum hit will usually go alongside a horn hit, whether that be on the downbeats or on any of the offbeats. In rock music, you typically get a big, heavy kick drum on the downbeat of a new section, and it's often paired with a crash cymbal, but the kick drum is what brings that crash cymbal to life. In all music, usually the bass guitar or bass synth part is tied in pretty tightly to the kick drum. Now, you could just go ahead and give yourself 4 on the floor kick and work around that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of music, obviously, that is just fine with placing the kick drum 4 on the floor and just going with it. But what if you want to put it somewhere else? Well, there's a couple things you need to keep in mind. And the first thing, of course, is how it's going to change and affect the overall mood, the feel, the vibe, if you will, of your track. So let's bring in that 4 on the floor pattern here again, and let's have a listen. Okay, snare drum on 2 and 4. Bring in some offbeat hi-hat. Okay, pretty simple pattern. What happens when we shift our kick drum 1/16th note to the right? Let's lose the click. All of a sudden, the first half of our measure is a lot funkier, isn't it? Adding some swing will make that even more funky. Gonna get rid of it now. It sounds great, but it is nothing like the pattern that we had first, the 4 on the floor pattern. Very, very different feel. All of a sudden, we can have a bass guitar right here on the E of beat 2. 1 E and 2 E and, right? And of course, that will continue this change that we've started with the kick drum. That might then trickle down into affecting a lead line that we have, or how we've sidechained our chords. That's a whole nother topic, sidechaining stuff to different kick drum lines that aren't just 4 on the floor. Maybe if you have an arpeggio going there, you might want to now leave this step here empty so that kick drum hits a little harder. Right? There's a lot we can do there. Super cool. So let's see what happens when we move this second kick drum 1 more 16th note to the right. All of a sudden, we're a lot more square, a lot closer to that original pattern. It almost feels like a 4 on the floor pattern again. That's because we have this snare drum picking up the slack on beat 2, where that kick drum was originally placed. Let's move it 1 more 16th note to the right. So now it's on the of beat 2. We're back to more of a funky or almost a swung feel. And remember, we have no swing applied to this right now. all of this is affecting how we work our bass line around it and how we work the other elements of our track around it. At first for this video, I was going to make a chord track and a lead line and a bass line, but I figured that I'd rather actually leave them out so you don't have any preconceived notions of a melody or a chord progression or a bass line over this beat. And I'm actually very curious as to how each of you are perhaps hearing a melody over this pattern right now. If you're so inclined, in fact, feel free to record this pattern and loop it. We're only at 120 BPM and play a melody over it. This specific pattern right here. And I want to hear what you can all come up with. Very, very interesting. I'm going to be doing an experiment like that on a larger scale fairly soon, actually. Now I'm going to share with you a little trick. This is something I picked up way back in middle school learning drums on, acoustic drum set. Anytime you've got two kick drums right next to each other in a subdivision, starting with 16th notes and getting smaller from there, take off the one that is closest to square on the beat, if that makes sense. So here we have something on the of beat 2, and then we have something on the downbeat of beat 3. So I'm going to take off the kick drum on the downbeat of beat 3, and listen to how much harder this is about to groove. This space right here, this two-step gap, says more with its lack of notes than any of the steps with notes on them by far in our entire pattern here. This space right here is now your playground. Not necessarily even just in the drums, but in the other tracks as well. That's where you can have any sort of like a bass line that just hangs there. That's where you can have maybe a little flourish in the bass line or the melody. That's where you can maybe have some passing chords. That's where you could get really cool with your ARP. Maybe the subdivisions of your ARP could change there. You've got two 16th notes or an 8th note to play with. Keep in mind, we've only changed two things on our entire pattern here. We just moved these two kick drums. We took this one out and moved this one to right here. That's it. Completely different pattern just by changing our bass drum placement or our kick drum placement. Now, let's take this kick drum and move it one step to the left. We still maintain our two-step gap right there, which allows us to, employ a variety of methods to keep our listener intrigued. And for the first time, we've really been able to funk up the back half of our pattern. Now, this might be too much here. These two kick drums are both off the downbeat or the offbeat, and instead they've both moved to the or the 4th 16th note of a beat in a 4/4 measure. So let's move this step here one more to the left, which will put it square on the and of beat 3, and that's going to give us a lot more of a grounded feel here. Notice how we haven't moved our hi-hat at all, but this hi-hat takes on a whole new life because we've paired it up with a kick drum buddy now. If you're hearing new possibilities in a bass line now, that's good. You probably should be, because this is one of the most open-ended patterns you can possibly come up with in terms of keeping the drums interesting, but still giving you so many places to go with your other instruments. And check this out, we've got 5 16th notes that are empty here at the end of the kick drum track, meaning we can really have some fun. Just by playing with these 5 steps here and the first 2 or 3 here back on beat 1, I was able to create, several variations all that feel the same but different, which is kind of the key if you want to keep your listener engaged and still have interesting drum parts. It also allows you to have many different variations of your bass line too, because more times than not, you'll want to be syncing your bass line up with your kick drum placement as it becomes more varied. So hopefully that all made sense. These are pretty simple drummer concepts, but I don't really see them being talked about too much in electronic music, which that was actually one of the original goals of this channel, to bring a little more like acoustic drummer mentality into my electronic music journey. So I do hope you found this video informative or at least entertaining. If you did, be sure to leave a like on it. If not, you know where the thumbs down button is. That's okay too. Doesn't hurt my feelings, just makes me try that much harder next time. Either way, be sure to hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Thank you all so very much for being here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.